Very briefly about Datapath. So we are a UK based company. Headquarters are in Derby, and we have been for over 35 years now. And we also have offices in US and Japan, and then remote sales offices all over Europe. And just as an aside, we have been working with the Infotech group for, I think it's 6 years now. So we have a good working relationship with them. All of their offices are fully technically trained. And the guys in India, we've been working with them for a long time. So typically our VSN controllers, which is our big 4U rack mount controllers, work in control rooms, defense, security, surveillance, knock rooms, briefing rooms. So there's a big market for these. And then the smaller controllers, still using the same cards and software, more for boardrooms, auditoriums, signage, crisis rooms. So that's where the focus would be on those controllers. And then the multi-display controllers, slightly different, which is just one input across multiple screens. Great for signage, TV studios, retail, events. And that's the section we're going to focus on first, because the two ranges of products that we've got are quite different. So the multi-display range. So these you may have seen at ISE if you've visited in the past. These have won several awards over the years. So initially it was our X4 unit, which was a DVI product. And then we moved to the FX4, which is HDMI and DisplayPort. And more recently, we released the FX4 HDR, which built on the strong FX4 base, but also now includes HDMI 2.0 input, which supports HDR10. So this allows us for especially the outdoor or the high brightness installations. We can support those, especially with some of the latest media players, maybe a Bright Sign, One LAN, Cable Time, Media Star, all of these different media players as well as others. But we can support them, giving us that full 4K 60, 444 resolution with HDR. So we're bringing the installation to life, and we can support that. So it supports HDCP 2.2, and for the first time allows us to pass through the audio as well. It allows us to crop, rotate and scale as any other FX4 would, but it gives us the additional support of these key features which I've mentioned. Here's how the unit looks around the back. So we've got HDMI 2.0 input here, two other HDMI 1.4 inputs here. You can only, excuse me, you can only show one at any one time. You can connect multiple, but then you would have to switch between them. And we do have a port here for looping out. So you can connect multiple boxes together. So potentially you could have 8, 12, 16 or more displays. Taking in that 4K 60 input, we will crop it and scale it to those outputs. And there are some fantastic installations where we've got more than one unit all across the world. So the scaling is a big part of the unit. The scaling is very, very good. And then we obviously have the FX4, which is a DisplayPort or HDMI outputs. So this is slightly different. This has two HDMI inputs, one DisplayPort, and then you choose whether it's HDMI or DisplayPort outputs on the model. Okay, so that's the standard models. And then we do have an SDI version as well, which is great for live events. It takes a piece out of the chain. So if you are looking to go over really long distances and need SDI, this will often take in an input on DisplayPort 4K 60. It will convert that and then output it to SDI. So this is a really useful box and takes away the requirement for a converter as well. And then we do have a stripped back version, the HX4, just for 1 HDMI in and 4 out. And I will share these slides afterwards. So this is the just a comparison table to show you the differences. Now, the thing that drives these systems really makes them flexible, user-friendly, is the Wall Designer software. So this is an award-winning software in its own right. It's free to download. You can try it. You can take it from our website, put it on your laptop and have a play around with it. It is a brilliant tool. You don't need to be connected to the FX4 to use it. It's a great design tool, and I'll give you a quick demo of this shortly. We have it available now on Windows or Mac, and like I say, it's a great demo tool for you to have on your laptop when you're going out and visiting customers. Okay, so if I just come out and share my Wall Designer. Okay, so here is the GUI of Wall Designer. We have a database preloaded with hundreds of commercial displays. Let's just take an NEC one, just as an example. And here we've got a lot of the popular commercial displays. If they're not in there, you can add your own quite easily. And when you do install the software, it gives you an option to check. So if you do add them, when you're connected to the internet, it will send a ping to our server to give us these details. We will potentially check these, and then if they are correct, we will add them to the next version. So it's helping us to constantly grow this this database. Let's just take a 55. They're quite popular at the moment. And this includes the resolution, the refresh rate, and the size, the exact sizes of each bezel and the display area. So once we've entered these, the video that we are putting into the FX4 or multiple units is then cropped and scaled to fit the specific displays. And we can mix and match different displays, different sizes, different resolutions, and different setups, whether it's portrait or landscape. So like I say, it's a very flexible system. So if I just put the 6 55-inch displays onto the video wall here, and now I'm going to change this to an 86 inch, and we'll put 2 on there as well. So you can see the difference. And if we just rotate these, I can just give you an example of how well the software works for us. Okay. So once we've got your setup, we can go in and put a background image. So you could potentially take a picture of your customer's reception area or the wall where it's going to be installed, and you could put that on here. Okay, we've got some preloaded ones as well. Let's just take office space. Okay, oops, sorry. So here we've got our installation, and that's how potentially it could look. And then we can play around with these. If we wanted to have one here or move this display a little bit further out, we can. Then we go into the inputs tab. We can put some content on there. We've got some preloaded content. But we've also seen this one before. We've got some preloaded videos in there. So you can see how that video is going to look. And then we can go back into the output and we can move these screens around. I think actually I prefer it with gaps between them. And then if we just refit it, it will recalibrate. Okay. You could browse here and put the customers' content on there. So then it could be a completely tailored demo for your customers. So you get their picture of the area they want to install it on, get their corporate video, and you can show them. And it's really effective. If you're going in there with, you know, a personalized demo to each customer, this is really effective and gives you the edge over your competition. And not only can we do that, let me just go in here. I'll change this back to landscape, refit the content. Then we can go in here and we can change the capture region. So you can change which region of that particular video your screen is, or the units are cropping out for that screen. An example being, I could go in here and screen 7, I could show the whole video on. See what I mean when I go back here? So we've got the whole video showing here, and then the rest of the video cropped and scaled across multiple displays here. So it is a really flexible system, and I could also replicate, so we could have the video playing on multiple screens. So it's really flexible, gives you the option to change, move around, and while you're connected to the boxes, you can make adjustments. So once we've designed our video wall, we can then go into this tab here and apply. Okay, so 2 things here. This will give you the topology of the setup, so you can see how many boxes you need. It will also give you a warning if something you're trying to do is not quite right. So here, the reason it's given me a warning is that an FX4 will output full HD on its outputs. Here, I've put 2 4K screens. So it's just giving me a warning that it will not be able to support 4K going into these outputs. We can put 4K into an FX4, but not out. So that's quite useful for a designing purpose. And if you've put a 4K screen there, actually might be better with a HD, or you just got to be aware that it's going to be upscaling a full HD output to 4K. Okay, so that's another useful feature. Once you've got this design, connect your laptop via USB to the units, hit apply settings, and it will store those settings on each of the FX4 boxes, ready for you to plug in your media player or your graphics card, going into the box, and then it should just take that video, crop, scale, rotate it, ready for the outputs. Okay. But what it can also do is give you the flexibility, and this is where we would recommend it over the use of looping through screens. So somebody say to me, oh, well, I don't need a box. I can just plug it in and input into 4 screens, for example, or 8 screens, and they'll loop through. This box gives us so much more flexibility to set up, gives us accuracy, pixel by pixel adjustment, redundancy. If one of the screens goes down, the others will continue to work. So it gives us a lot of options. So if we go back into inputs here, I can adjust the capture regions, like I've shown you earlier. But here I'm adjusting either by hand. So now if I'm connected to the units, this is adjusting live. Okay, so if I'm connected via USB, it's a live adjustment. Let's go back to here, refit the content. Now, when the screens have been installed, if it's not quite right, we can move these pixel by pixel. See, I'm moving left here. You can be moving down. So I'm just using the arrows on my laptop to move up, down, left, and right. So this gives us that pixel by pixel adjustment. And like I say, if I'm now connected via USB to one of the units, this would be adjusting the content. So it's very flexible and gives you a lot of control over what you're doing. Okay. What we can also do now is just get another system up there. Just wait for this to load up. So here we can, just as an example of what we can support, here we've got a full HD display, 2 of them, here and here, combined with LED modules, 0.7 pixel pitch with a different resolution. Okay. And what we've now added to the FX4 and the software is the ability to add black borders or dead pixels to this content, so then it won't look out of place. Okay, so we're taking that content in as an input here, and then it's taking that and it's adding these black borders to it to allow us to get a smooth output across all 4 displays. Okay. And not only can the FX4 be used with displays, it can be used with projectors as well. So we've got on our website some fantastic examples of where these have been used with media servers to split the content out. So taking a 4K 60 output from a media server and splitting it across 4 or more projectors. And just as a bit of a plug, we are doing a series of Datapath webinars. Next Monday, we have a short webinar, which as a guest on it is our media server customer, a company called Front Pictures. And they make the Screenberry media server. So if you're interested, I can send out the invite to that for Monday, and there'll be a guest on our webinar, which is just a chat, but they'll be advising on how you can use a media server with the FX4 for live events. Okay. So like I say, just going back to the software, it's a brilliant software. You can download it for free, keep it on your laptop, and use it to create some really nice designs, flexible designs. Okay. So that is the end of this short section on multi-display systems. So does anybody have any questions? You can type it in the chat if you don't want to ask it. If not, I'll just give it a second. I'll just have a drink, just a quick drink, and then we'll move on to the next section, which is the larger controllers, multi-input, multi-output for command and control. And if you do have any questions afterwards, then please direct them back through Karthik, and I can send out the answers potentially next week. But what I will be doing after this session is sending out the slides as well as the recording. If you've got colleagues that missed this or you want to go back over anything, then we can do that. Okay, so that's our multi-display section. Go back to my PowerPoint now. Okay. So moving on to the video wall systems. So these are a large range of Windows-based controllers called either the VSN Micro, or the iLite. And this is the portfolio. So here we have our big 4U rack mount systems, which is a traditional command and control setup. And then we have like a hybrid system, which is a combination really of a small form factor of a like a product a bit like the FX4, but it's big enough to combine with our capture cards and graphics cards to allow us to create a quiet video wall controller which will support up to 20 outputs, potentially. And I'll explain a little bit more about that. But yeah, so these are obviously for your 24/7 command and control, and these on a smaller scale, but a bit quieter. Maybe where you don't have a rack room, you can keep them in the same room as the video wall. So here is a typical setup of a Datapath system. So here's where the VSN or potentially an ILI is managing these sources coming into the box. This could include AV sources via capture cards, HDMI, DisplayPort, desktop capture, media servers, video cameras, all coming in, combining them with IP cameras, for example, or streaming servers. We have a decode card which can decode these in and show them as sources. Network sources, VNC. We have our own VNC, which is Datapath Agent, which we'll talk about that in the software section. All of these sources coming in here, being managed by our system, potentially being controlled by some kind of third-party control like RTI, AMX, Crestron, and then it's allowing us to push those outputs onto a video wall however we want to do it, whether we're doing it picture in picture or we're playing one video across the whole wall or splitting it up. It really is up to you or the customer. We're agnostic, so we can then support LCDs, LEDs, projectors, cubes on the output side of things. So it's a really flexible system, again, managed by our software. So the features which these will give you: single source maximize, picture in picture, free form, multiple sources or layers per output. Here you've got, now I'll whip through these quite quickly, but here you can see the single sources maximized across the wall. And what do you need for that? So you need potentially to be able to scale, take that input and scale it across multiple displays. Maintain or not maintain the aspect ratio depending on your setup, possibly being able to crop this, and what type of sources. So we can do all of this through our capture cards in the back plane. Multiple sources per output. So this is quite useful. So we can take here we've got one screen, but we've split it into 4 smaller windows where we're putting different sources on. And this is also great with an LED, for example. So a big LED setup where you've maybe got one sender box, sometimes a Nova Star, for example, or another sender box. Some of these only take one input, but they want to be able to show different layers or sources. So we're ideal for that. We can manage that, and one of our outputs or 2 can go into a sender box, and then you're going onto the LED wall and we're showing multiple outputs on that LED wall. So we did that at Infotech India last year. And then we've got an example of other multiple sources per output here. Like I say, for this, we need layers per output, and we can do that. We're not really limited by anything. It's just the minimum size of the window that you're looking to show. And we can go very small on that area, much smaller than you would want to show in terms of, you know, what is realistic for an operator to view on the video wall. It's very flexible. Picture in picture or picture over picture, we can do that quite easily as well through these systems. And again, that's using multiple layers on the outputs. Freeform mode, this gives us the ability to drag and drop a source onto the video wall, and then we can resize that depending on the setup that you've got in the particular room. And here we can see this source has been dragged and dropped to look in a portrait, set up across 2 screens. And then we've got others where they've been split across other displays or multiple sources within a display. And again, it's the layers per output. We manage those layers and you can do with them what you like. And then a source device, so the ability to bring in sources and put them onto the unit, or if it's a web source, for example, we can run those natively from the controller. And you need the operating system, obviously, for that. Okay, so just a reminder of the setup that we've got. Chassis, capture cards, decoding cards, and graphics cards. All of these combine into bespoke systems managed by our software. So the larger systems, the VSN systems, we have available in 4, 9, and 11 slots with i7, Xeon, dual Xeon, different options depending on budget, tender requirements, specific requirements from customers or the end user. Lots of different options. So it can be a little bit daunting sometimes if you were to go to our website and look at the amount of options we've got. It is huge. But that's what I'm here for. That's what Karthik and the team at Mindstech are there for, is to help guide you to which system is more suitable for your customers. And then we have single or dual power supplies in these units as well. We offer expansion. So potentially we could have 5 11-slot chassis connected together, offering 51 available card slots. So we can do some really big systems. We can support these, and we have been doing for many years. We still offer Windows 7 systems for some customers. We can offer 64 display outputs on this. And more recently, Windows 10, we can offer 48 outputs. And then potentially hundreds of inputs, depending on which type and what resolution. So like I say, we can create some really big systems. And then on the smaller side of things, we've got the VSN Micro 600. So this has under the hood 6 slots. So it's a 6-slot backplane. And these are the different options how you can configure it. But this is a silent video wall controller. So this you could potentially have in the same room as your video wall if it's a smaller, like a crisis room or a small security room, even an office or a reception area. We can use these in there. And just repeating what the VSN controllers, where they can work: defense, security, simulation, knock rooms, security rooms. And now the highlights. So the highlights, just to explain, is so the reason that initially the iLight 600 was developed was to try and make it a bit easier for end users and customers. So rather than having to spec a chassis, multiple cards, software, etc., a lot of the iLight systems are pre-configured. So you would have one part code for a 4-in, 4-out video wall controller with software, just to make it easier, and they're pre-built so they're available more quickly. Okay, so these have been designed to be quiet and work in such areas like a retail where you requiring more than one input, headquarters, boardrooms, reception areas. And here we can see the inside of the iLight. So very similar to the VSN 600 6-slot backplane. But like I said, we've got pre-configured units. So this one part number here supports a graphics card, a capture card, which gives us 4 HDMI outputs, 4 HDMI inputs, and a software to manage these. But if you don't really want to get involved, all you need to know is 4 HDMI in, 4 HDMI out, and you've got one part code there. And here, different part code, 4 in, 8 out, 4 in, 12 out. So it gives us the flexibility to offer these as a pre-configured unit, off the shelf, very easy to quote a customer. And then we have recently released what's called the iLight 12i. So previously on our wall controllers, we couldn't really combine 4K outputs with full HD outputs. We can now, and we have a software which allows us to do that, but we couldn't. So we designed this product which has got built-in outputs. So rather than having graphics cards, it's got a built-in graphics set on the unit. So we've got 12 full HD outputs on HDMI, or 3 4K outputs on DisplayPort. And you can mix and match. So you might want 1 4K output and 8 HDMI outputs. So it's very flexible, and the software was designed to combine, say, a 4K breakout screen with a 2x2 video wall. And we're finding that has been a lot more relevant in certain markets recently. So you might have a 2x2 video wall, but then have a breakout screen to the side of it, or a touch panel. We can now support these, and this gives us the ability to put 2 capture cards in there. So that's the iLight 12i. Slightly different to the other units that we've got. Again, quiet, rack mountable. And this is the difference between the two ranges of iLight systems. Okay. Just some example of use cases where that's been used. So retail, so this is in Russia. So here we've got a 4x3 video wall. But what it's done, it's used a 3x3 section here, and that has one input showing a corporate video. Then we've got another input here, which is just a logo, which is there permanently. And then we've got some other information here from other inputs. So this is using multiple inputs in more of a clever retail setup. And this is utilizing the iLight technology to do this. Here we've got an example in a corporate reception area. So we've got a 3x3 here. This is currently showing one input across the 3x3, but potentially we could have others. So we could have a news channel in one screen. We could have the weather showing here, and then other content coming in. Okay, so this is typically for a small scale video wall, example being in a reception area, waiting areas. And it gives us the option to have the controller in the same area if we need to, because it is quiet. And then a boardroom. So you might want to have the controller in a boardroom where you can connect your laptops very easily. One thing it does have is a plug and play. So it will take those inputs and just display them across the video wall. Then you can do your picture-in-picture or laptop per screen if you need to, but also bring in other inputs like websites, other corporate data on URLs, conferencing if you wanted to capture someone's Skype or Teams, that kind of thing. So we do that back in our office, and that works really well as well. Okay, so just a reminder of where the iLights potentially could fit in. So we've talked about the range of controllers now and what can go in them. So Datapath has a big range of capture cards. If you go onto our website, you will find a lot more than this. But what I've done is drilled down and focused on the latest range of cards that we've got. And if you focus on these, you won't need any of the others. So these are updated versions of a lot of the others. And these give you the highest performance available in that particular area. So whether it's HDMI, DisplayPort, etc. So this is the Vision SC range of capture cards. And the main unit which is used at the moment is the SC HD4 Plus. So this allows us the ability to capture 4 HDMI or DVI signals. So we have 2 splitter cables going into these connectors here with either DVI or HDMI, and then coming in here. Okay. We do have the option to have SDI. So we've got this card here, the SDI4, which can capture 4 3G SDIs. And now moving on to 4K, we have the SCDP2, which supports 2 4K 60 DisplayPort captures with HDCP 2.2. And our flagship card, which has just been released at ISE, with 2 HDMI 2.0 ports. So 2 full 4K 60 444 captures at 60 frames per second at HDCP 2.2. Okay, so that's the latest and greatest card. And if you want to just connect HDMI straight without any converters, this is your card. And then we have a decoding card, which you could combine in a system with the other capture cards as well. This is very popular for our surveillance or security systems where we've got IP cameras and we want to bring those streams in as a source that we can then deliver to the video wall. So the card can decode a number of streams simultaneously. The number that we try to push is full HD at 30 frames per second. That's what a lot of people ask for in these installations. You can decode 12 per card at any one time. Okay. And you can have multiple cards in a system. So potentially we could decode hundreds of IP cameras coming in. And then if you've got higher resolution, it would be less. Or more likely, the cameras might be of a lower resolution, HD or VGA, and we can do up to 50 decodes per card on a lower resolution. And they will load balance across the cards automatically. So it's a very flexible way of bringing in a lot of IP cameras into a system. And once we've chosen our input cards, be it a combination of capture and decode, however you want, then we can combine with our output cards. So the one which most of you are probably aware of that you've seen is the Image DP4 Plus. This supports 4 DisplayPort outputs or HDMI or DVI with the output adapters which we supply with the unit. Now this is good for 48 simultaneous HD outputs. And we've just released an Image 4K. So this is like our flagship graphics card now. So this offers 4 HDMI 2.0 outputs. So no output adapters, straight connection, HDMI 2.0, 4 4K 60, 444 outputs. Okay. So this enables a true 4K system if you combine it with our UHD2 capture card here that we talked about on the previous slides. Okay, it supports HDCP 2.2. One thing you do need to remember is obviously the bandwidth with 4K is big. So the only chassis that we've got which will support this card and the bandwidth for it is the VSN 400, the VSN 600, and the VSN 11. So no IOLites will support this card. It's a different use case. This is for more powerful installations. And we can combine these cards together, 6 in one single system, to give us 24 4K 60 outputs, should you require. And that brings into play the option of then looping through displays. So if you've got these screens that can support HDMI 2.0 loop through, if you've got them set up in a 2x2 regions, we could potentially go to more than 24 outputs. You could loop through, so you could have 24 4K outputs looping through, which gives you the option possibly to go up to 96 full HD screens or outputs by looping through. This gives you a bit of flexibility as well. So that's the hardware. And now what do yourself or others need to be asking the end user or the customer before? So this is what helps us narrow down the area of the system. So what sources, quantities, resolutions, frame rates are required? Do you need IP sources? What resolutions and frame rates? How many of these IP cameras do you want to display at any one time? Now that's a big thing, because you may have 500 IP cameras, but you don't want to see all 500. Otherwise the operator, they'll be so small the operator won't be able to see them. So you might want maybe 50 cameras shown at any one time, and then the other 50 or the other however many being shown on a rotation of 50 every few seconds. We can do that. You just need to remember to ask the customer these details, and then we can spec up the hardware. So with the decode cards, if you're showing, say, 12 IP cameras at any one time, but you want to show another 12 after and then another 12, you would need double the amount of SQX hardware in there. So effectively you're decoding in the background, and then it allows it to switch to every time limit that you've set. So you might want to switch every 10 seconds. You can do that. That's a little bit more complicated, and that's where we come in, and we can help you with that. But we need from you what quantities you want visible, what resolutions, what frame rates, and that will help us. VNC, so do they want to be showing shared desktops, and how many? We don't recommend it if they're doing it all the time. You know, if they want to share their operator desktop to the wall, we would say do that via capture card. But if you just want to share something briefly, or share your screen for an operator to see it or a manager to see it, then yeah, VNC is good. We have our own inbuilt VNC in the software called Datapath Agent, so that will work. Do we need to support local applications? Do we need KVM? All of these questions are useful to find out. And then output, what do we need to support? What output do they need? Is it HDMI? Is it DisplayPort? Is it going into a cube or an LED or a projector? All of this information is good for us to have. And then probably referring more to the tender or the spec that's been designed. Do they need i5, i7, Xeon or dual Xeon? We'd like it to be dual Xeon all the time, but it depends on the budget, the specs, the requirements for that particular project. And then, you know, do they need a higher RAM? Do they need redundant power supply, single power supply? And how much control would they want? So do they want to manage this day by day, or do they want to just flick between layouts and have it linked up to a command software? And do they need to restrict access? Okay. So this is where now Datapath software comes in. So I'm just going to pause briefly. I'm going to have a drink. And does anybody have any questions about the hardware before we move on to the software? Everybody's being quite shy today. I can understand it's a Friday. So yeah, have a think. And if there are any questions, then just pop them in the chat box and we can answer them at the end. But yeah, please use this time and think about some questions, and give me a bit of a test at the end. Okay, so moving on. Datapath has 3 main softwares which help with the video wall system. So the first one here is the Display Driver Configuration Tool, or DDCT. This is included for free. It was a big update to our systems, and it works as a setup wizard, basically, as a similar database to what Wall Designer for the FX4 does, with lots of different commercial displays, screen sizes, bezel sizes. And this will pop up the first time the system is switched on, and then you or your customer will get the option to set up the video wall. Very useful and quite unique in the market. Then we have Wall Control 10, which manages the video wall, and I'll talk more in depth about this. And then we have a diagnostic suite, which is installed on every system leaving our manufacturing base, and it allows you to monitor the system, gives you all of the serial number details, the driver version which is installed, and how it's operating. Very useful to have, and it also allows us, if there are any issues, for you to quite easily send us the diag list and the memory dumps from here to our engineers, and then they can have a look and help you try and troubleshoot the system should there be any issues. So this is how the display driver setup tool works. And here we can add displays to the wall. Like I say, it's similar to Wall Designer. Displays with bezels, manufacturer, model used, what cables, whether we're going to support bezel compensation or not, how many displays up and across. If you don't know the resolution of the display, you could import the resolution once you've connected, and it will tell you whether it's 1080, 4K, etc. And we can set up creative walls, so combining portrait or landscape if you need to. And it allows this, once it's set up, this will link into Wall Control 10 to give us that correct display group within Wall Control when we're managing the content on the wall. It allows us to set up with projectors. If you've got someone who wants to do edge blending, we don't actually do the edge blending, but we can overlap the output, so then they can use their edge blending software to smooth the overlaps here and here. LED walls, we have some preloaded LED walls in there, and we can put in the correct resolution, height, physical height, pixel pitch, and then set it up from there. Combining multiple display groups, we can do that as well. So it's very flexible, very useful for you to set up. And once you're set up, then we'll go into Wall Control 10, and it will give you your, what we name as blueprint, or your main overall video wall. Okay, so Wall Control 10, this is how it looks. This is the GUI that you would see when you install it, either on the operator PC connected to the wall or as a client. So you can install this on unlimited workstations around the security knock room. Your sources will show up down the left-hand side here. You can create a template very easily, and this will allow you to split the wall up into areas, maybe not necessarily per screen, but multiple splits per screen, like this, ideal for CCTV, for example. And then we can go about populating these areas by dragging and dropping sources into areas. You will see a 1 frame per second playback of that on your GUI. And then you can save those as layouts ready to be recalled either manually or via RTI panel, or we do have our own web interface as well now. So lots of different options. You can freely place them anywhere onto the wall if you need to, or like I say, you can set up a template and drag and drop sources on there. It's very user friendly. So you could, for example, we've taken a screen here and we've dropped a 2x2 template onto an already split template, which splits it into 4. And then we can put the content inside these smaller splits. And the sources which we would support, like I've said before, physical sources on the capture cards, local images or videos, internet pages, applications, remote connections. If you've got Datapath agent installed, it's a VNC just wrapped up in Datapath software, local images, local videos. Okay. One thing which I didn't mention about on the decode card is the Active SQX. Not only can it decode live camera streams, it can also decode local video files. So one thing that we've found is if you've got, say, a corporate video that you want playing, or you've got some kind of local video that you've got stored on your controller, if you play this, our system will play it, that's fine. But it will use the CPU of the chassis to do this. And that's fine. But if you're playing processor intensive video, like 1 or 2 4K videos and other HD videos, you have the potential to start slowing the system down there. By using the Active SQX card, you can put these videos in a repository for the SQX, and it will decode these videos on the card rather than the CPU. So it's freeing up the CPU space. So that's good to know. And if you are combining captures with local video, it's very useful to have SQX cards doing that as well. We can take sources, scale them. We can crop them now. So we could take an area, crop them, rotate them, and put them in what's called a carousel. So you could play one video for, say, 15 seconds and then another for 20 seconds. You can set all this up through the software. So templates, so this is how you split your video wall. Very easy. So here I've set up like a 5x5 grid and then grouped areas together. So we just go back to that. So I can group 6 screens into one. So when we drop this template onto the video wall, this is just one region where I can drop a source into. Say very easy to set up. On-screen display, we support this now, so we can right-click on the source and add, if it's camera 1, camera 2, car part 1, different font colors, and put it wherever we like. This is very useful as well. Cropping, this is how we do it. So we could take input 1, but we can crop a certain region, whether you want to keep the aspect ratio or not, and that will save it as a crop of that. So potentially you could have video 1 and a crop of video 1 at different areas on the video wall. And they're completely independent of each other as well, which is unique to Datapath. So other manufacturers, we know that where you can crop sources and have the same source on the wall, will all be playing at the same time, as are individual instances of the same source. Potentially we can set up carousels as well. So here we've got one window, and in this window we've got different sources being shown at different times. So firstly, we've got the Datapath homepage. This is showing for 15 seconds. And then we've got another video going to play for 15 seconds, and other different videos, logos. This is called a carousel, and you can set these up very easily, and they will just play. Once you set up your layout, it will just automatically play. Effectively, a playlist of sources. Remote connections. So when you have the client software installed, it gives you the option to install what's called Datapath Agent. And this is our VNC software uses type VNC wrapped up in a Datapath GUI. So you can then share your laptop or your workstation as a source to the video wall. So Andy's laptop, or here we've got Dave's laptop, and then you would just drag and drop that onto the video wall like you would do any other source. Web pages, we now support the ability to zoom in on web pages. So this is a big thing we found in the Indian market, is that a lot of people are potentially moving away from capture cards in some instances and wanting to show corporate data coming through, maybe in a power station showing operating temperatures, this or data. They can do this on URLs, multiple URLs across the video wall. We can support this, and I'll talk about what we do here a little bit later on in the slides. So this is how it looks. So the end user interaction, you've got the client, and we also have a simplified web interface. So this can be used either from a web browser or from your tablet or your phone, for example, if you want touch access to it. Okay. So the different versions of wall control, so pretty much all of those features which I've described to you are included in our standard software. Okay. The only time you will need to go to our pro software is when we are looking to decode multiple streams. So for use with the active SQX cards, you need the pro version. The ability to control multiple video walls from the same chassis, which is very useful. So you can share the same inputs to different video walls. So one in your boardroom, say, one in your reception area, one in a crisis room. You need the pro version. And user rights management. So if you want to lock down users, we do this via Active Directory in the pro version. Okay. And then we also have a VMS version, which has direct integration with Milestone X-Protect. So if you're doing security projects and you know of Milestone X-Protect software, we link in directly with that, with a plugin. So if it's for a tender or some kind of security project, we can link in with that. I'm not going to go too much in depth about that. What I will say is there is another webinar, a general Datapath one coming up, which is worth having a look at if you're interested in Milestone. And there will be integration with Genetech in the near future as well. Okay, so the main difference is, like I said, the pro version is for active SQX IP decodes, multiple walls, and user rights management. So going through the key features, like I said, the standard includes templates, layout control, aspect ratio control, cropping, carousel. All of these are included. Okay, so now I'm just going to go through what we've added recently. So if you are familiar with wall control, we have introduced a lot of new features over the last 3 or 4 months. So the web interface is a big one, KVM to source, and advanced browser control. So the web interface, so this is, like I say, the touchscreen interface. This is great for using with tablets, but it's also a way of not giving as much access to the operator. So if you don't want the operator to have access to the sources, you could create layouts and then just give them access to the IP address, and all they can do then is click different preset layouts. And this is how it looks on a tablet, and you would just touch a layout as well. So it's very flexible, and it gives us the option or the opportunity to build on this in the future to create a more feature-rich web browser. And if you're not necessarily in the same room when you're setting up, if you click on this snapshot button here, then it will show us what the video wall looks like currently. So it'll give us a snapshot of what sources are where on that particular video wall. So that's quite a nice feature to have as well. KVM to source is a good one. So we've had Datapath agent for quite a while. So like I just mentioned, sharing your screen via type VNC effectively to the wall. But now if you've got someone who's operating the video wall via the client, they can go into that source, right click on it, and it gives you the option to open connection. And then you can take control. So you could be operating the wall. You could have my laptop or my workstation. And if you take control of my workstation with KVM control, so maybe you want to enter some login credentials if they're not at their desk, we can do that. Or you want to monitor what's on their desktop, you can do that. Advanced browser features is a good one. So like I said, a lot in the Indian market we found is lots of people or projects potentially don't use the capture cards, and they're showing multiple web URLs to show company data. Now, these are great, but they don't necessarily scale up to multiple screens very well. So you might have the data, and when you scale it up to, say, a full screen on a 6-screen video wall, a lot of the data is in the middle, and you get around the outside of it a lot of white or wasted background or wasted space. These advanced features give us the option to zoom in, start at a certain pixel, horizontally or vertically, and it also gives us the option to refresh. So if you've got company data constantly coming in, you might want to refresh that automatically every 30 seconds, for example, and then this will update on the video wall without you having to go in and do it yourself. There are some new command lines as well. So if you're controlling via control panel, RTI, for example, going in, start and stop the video walls. We've got different options in there. We can do that now. And also for SQX, so if you're setting up secure cameras or streams, the passwords are secured now as well. Just a little update in there. On-screen display, this has just been released, so we can, like I said earlier, add on like if the name of the source. So you can have camera 1, car park 1. You can have it in a certain color, but we can also include variables like the source name, the time and the date, the resolution, this kind of thing. So you could just add these here. So this is very useful and again, very flexible how we set it up. And wall control 1.11 was launched in January, so this allowed us to add colored borders and frames, the ability to zoom on PDFs, similar to what we do on web URLs, carousel updates, and supporting milestone playback if we are linking in with the milestone VMS. So the colored borders allows us to put a colored border around a window which is already on the video wall. Okay, so if you wanted to highlight the displays that a certain operator should look at, and they have, say, a color, or you need it to flash on and off, we can do that. And we can do that with frames as well. So this is potentially where you've got multiple sources coming in, and you want it to go around all of the sources, not just one. PDF control, like I say, similar to the web URLs, we can zoom in and zoom out. and start on a particular pixel. So this is very useful as well if we're showing PDFs on the video wall. And this is quite interesting. So what we will be bringing to Wall Control 10, I should update this because it is now May. So to be released shortly. There's been a slight delay because a lot of our software engineers are now working from home during this lockdown period. But we will be supporting very shortly RSS feeds and banners. So great for your reception, installations, signage applications. So this will allow banners to be placed on the wall and scroll from left to right or right to left. And there'll also be the ability to have a transparent background on those. So you can have banners running across your sources. Vision Restream is a very interesting one. So this will be a feature made available in the Pro software, and it will allow us to take non-HDCP sources which are going in via the capture card. So if you've got 2 or 3 capture cards with HDMI sources coming in, we can now take those and encode them and make them available on the network. So this gives us the option to view the sources prior to putting them on the video wall. So you could check them via, using say VLC once you've got the address of that stream. Or you might want to send the sources over the network to another controller, which has got an active SQX card in it, and then you could decode them. So it's quite flexible. It's new to us. It's not something we've done before. And it allows us then to take these streams and make them available. And what this is gearing us up to is future Datapath developments, which will probably be coming towards the end of the year or early next year, will be more of an AV over IP setup. And this is sort of the start of that. So it's making our systems ready for AV over IP. Watch this space. There will be further news on that towards the end of the year. And just some other improvements, so that it would be the ability to rename Blueprint. So where you've got Blueprint as your main video wall, you could call it what you want. Might not be an issue for many people, but for some customers in certain languages, they want to be able to name it something different. And the potential to bring in thousands of sources. So if you want thousands of IP cameras, for example, we could potentially bring those in now. Okay, so that's it from me, really, everybody. I know I've taken up quite a bit of your time, but we've left sort of 10 minutes at the end. So if anybody does have any questions, we've got a bit of time now. If you want me to go back over anything, or you want to discuss anything which is arising from today, so yeah, please have a think and let me know. Are there any questions arising from that? Don't be shy. I put my my video back on now. With stop this share. Okay. Any questions, guys? If I put this on now so you can see me, please let me know. Like I say, we have got some spare time, or myself and Karthik have put in some time there, that if you do have any questions, please unmute and fire away. Any questions from you, Karthik?
So regarding the KVM control, so can you just explain in brief, Andy? So
yeah, sure. Let me. What I'll do is I'll go and share my screen again and just show you just how it looks, because I can't. Unfortunately, we don't have an offline version of it, so I can't demo it to you. But let me share my. Okay, so we've gone back onto here, and if I scroll back just to show you how it looks. So here, this is how, when you right click on a source, it gives you different options. Okay, so if you go to one of the Datapath agent sources and right click on it, it will give you some options. And one of the options will be open connection. If I click on open connection, it will show me a representation of that particular desktop. And then I can go into that desktop and take control of it using KVM control. So I could share different laptops to the wall, and then if I want to go in and look at that, I could go in, say, Karthik's laptop, right click, open connection, and as long as, excuse me, he's allowed me to share it by making it available, I can then go in and take control of that, enter like login credentials, that kind of thing, and do that from there. So it's only simple KVM, but it's quite useful for the video wall.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Sorry.
So on this borders, color borders, so is that it's a permanent setup, or if there is any abnormality happens on that particular source, it will trigger a highlighting borders kind of?
Yeah, good question. At the moment, it's just permanent, so you would have to switch it on or off. It's quite easy. It's quite easy to do. Again, you would just go to the source if you're the main operator, right click, and you can add the on-screen display or add the border. It is something we're looking at doing potentially with triggers in the future. It will be added to the API, so if we've got developers that want to try and do that, it is possible. But yeah, it's not something where we can put triggers on it yet, but it's something that we are looking at for the future.
So can you just give a brief on milestone X product integration with Datapath?
Let me just see if I've got a just come out of this. So I should have a PDF on it or a PowerPoint, which I should be able to share with you. So just bear with me a second. Okay, so let me share my screen again. Okay, so this is it's quite a big presentation, this, but what I'll do is I'll go. So you've seen a lot of this, but what I will do is just fast forward to the milestone part. Okay, so milestone, we are now an authorized partner, approved partner of Milestone. We did a joint webinar this week that they hosted. So we find that we are involved in a lot of installations where Milestone is installed as well. So their X-Protect software is very big in the security market, and their operators would look at this kind of GUI 10 hours a day. What they don't want their operators to do is to learn a separate software. So they don't want to be operating X-Protect and Wall Control alongside each other. And they don't want to be flicking from one GUI to another, because in mission critical situations, those few seconds could be the difference between saving a situation or not. So what they wanted was to be able to manipulate the video wall through their own software. So what we have done is written a link, a plugin, so they can, through their own X-Protect software, they will have some more options by downloading our plugin. And then this gives them the ability to manage the video wall through this software. Okay, so they can create zones. They can allow what they're doing on their GUI to match, to be mirrored on the video wall. Lots of different options. And whereas previously Milestone, if they were trying to support a video wall, had their own smart wall software, which is, it's okay for sort of small, like sort of 2x2 or 2x3 installation, but anything bigger than that, they can't really support. So this allows them to combine with Datapath and allows their operators to control the video wall without learning anything new and without moving to a different software. So we can save, recall, and delete wall control 10 layouts here. And the big advantage as well that they can't currently do in Milestone is we can include other non-Milestone sources such as web pages, physical capture inputs, as well as their Milestone sources. And this allows us to create zones within the video wall. Okay. So here we would use a template to split this zone. And then you could, for example, here, whatever view they were looking at in their Xprotect software here is then mirrored on that zone in the video wall. And then so their view 2 here could go into this zone here. So it's quite powerful and gives you the chance to fill in these zones with Milestone views. Okay. And then, like I said, we can mirror what's going on. We can track. So if you wanted to, if an incident's going on and you've got one camera here and you wanted to track that on the video wall, you could put that onto the video wall and then the operator could carry on looking at different cameras while his colleagues are looking at the original camera on the video wall. So it gives you lots of flexibility, gives them a lot more control. And your setup would be, you've got a Milestone server and what they call the on-VIF bridge. So Milestone can add a lot of information to streams coming in. So this could be triggers of some kind. OnVIF takes the Milestone inputs and makes them available as just a standard stream that we can decode and then show on the video wall. So the benefits, so there's no need to go into a different UI. We can display views in zones. We can change the entire video wall content through these different layouts. And the benefit to a system integrator is no need to spend time setting all of the different IP sources in Wall Control 10. So these are automatically imported from Milestone, okay? And then control of that wall is given to the Milestone user. So you don't then need to use another control app like AMX Crestron in these particular cases, because they're already using the Milestone software. So this is just a bit more about the setup. Seeing if anything more is useful. So I can share this afterwards as well, if you wanted to have a look at it. And like I say, there is a further webinar which is conducted by our product manager, Matt. And I think they're going on, I think there might be one next week and one later on in May. So I'll share those with you, Karthik, and you can, the dates, and then you can distribute them around the team. Yeah, so is that useful?
Yeah. We highlights on the expert. And yeah, one more last question from my end.
Sure.
So with Datapath FX4, what is the maximum size of video wall we can do?
Good question. The units have been tested to 8 systems, so 32 screens. There's nothing to stop you going bigger than that. The only potential issue you'd have is the resolution. So we can only put 4K in, and that's then scaled to multiple outputs. So you would have potentially a 4K video being shown over 32 screens. So if it's far enough away and your content's good enough, the scaling on the FX4 is very good. So potentially, yeah, you could do more than that, but obviously there is that limitation of the input resolution. But I think for a lot of video walls, 16, 20 screens, absolutely fine. You'll be absolutely fine. We've got lots of installs in UK, Middle East, where we've used multiple boxes together, and it's worked very well.
Okay.
It combines very well with like a bright sign or one lamp. These kind of boxes.
Got it. Thank you, Andy, for your response. So,
No
dear team, do you have any questions to ask with Andy? Please feel free to ask.
We are good, Karthik. I mean, as of now, we don't have any questions, and the questions that we had was answered through this presentation. And thank you so much for scheduling this. But however, during the course of the design, and we may, in case we have any challenges, we will definitely get back to you, Karthik.
Sir. Thank you, sir.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Andy. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
Have a good weekend, and yeah, hopefully I'll get a chance to come and see you soon once we're out of this strange lockdown period. So yeah, everybody stay safe and well. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Good day.
Bye-bye.